Trent Torres and I were childhood best friends in public, and quiet, inseparable young lovers in private. We once swore that if one of us differentiated as an alpha and the other as an omega, we would get married immediately. But in the end, we both differentiated into S-rank alphas. Neither of us said the word breakup. It simply happened. He stopped bending down to kiss my forehead when he got up in the morning, and I stopped tugging at his sleeve to keep him a little longer. The ending settled silently between us. Our friends thought we were just having a childish argument. They tried constantly to pull us into the same gatherings, hoping we would talk it out. After all, we basically grew up together. No one wanted to see us drift apart. William and Samuel meant well, but they didn't know, we weren't fighting. We had broken up. We sat at opposite ends of the private room, the farthest distance possible. In the past, even sitting right next to him never felt close enough. Under the glow of neon lights, Trent's quiet features looked even more composed. He looked at me, and the moment our eyes met, a familiar ache burst open again. The kind that comes with losing someone you never thought you'd lose. Agitation rose inside me. I didn't want to see him. A wound that keeps opening will never heal. I deliberately set my glass down with a loud clatter. I met his gaze directly. As always, he understood me instantly. His voice carried irritation as he spoke first. "What's your problem?" I grabbed a bottle and smashed it against the floor. "My problem is that I can't stand the sight of you." The spark ignited instantly. I crossed the room in a few steps, grabbed his collar, and threw a punch at that annoyingly handsome face. He didn't hold back either. We didn't use pheromones, just raw, physical emotion. William and Samuel froze for a second. Then Samuel yelled, "Help!" Split them up. A bunch of hands finally pried us apart. I glared at Trent and spat. "We're done. Completely. Wherever I am, stay away." He looked back at me steadily. "Same to you." Just like that, we made it clear. Quit trying to fix us, we were already over. When the chaos ended, I headed for the parking garage. Trent was leaning against his car, tall and quiet, head lowered so his dark hair cast a shadow over his eyes. When he saw me, he tossed an ice pack in my direction. I caught it and pressed it to my cheek. The cold stung sharply. A flicker of amusement flashed in his eyes. "You could have gone easier," I muttered. "Joseph's too sharp. If the bruises look light, he'd never believe it." I looked at Trent's equally bruised cheek and couldn't help laughing. I waved at him. "All right, see you." He watched me get into my car. I hesitated, rolled down the window. "People probably won't arrange private meetups like this again." His short replies made my chest tighten. I wanted to yell at him, but on what grounds? There was a time when I could. I could get mad over a flat soda, over dying in a video game, over a bad dream, and he would always look at me with that helpless, indulgent smile. Those memories were so vivid, untouched by time. I forced down the sharp ache and looked at Trent again. He was looking back, eyes lowered. You can see longing. It gathers like mist in someone's gaze. My throat tightened. I rolled the window up quickly, but at the last moment, threw the ice pack back at him. His lashes trembled, and he let out a bitter little laugh. Childish. But in the rearview mirror, he didn't move at all, just watched my car leave. Lonely, quiet, like the whole world had emptied around him. I looked away. Suddenly, I wanted to turn back. Those hands, I once held them tightly. That mouth, I once kissed deeply and wildly. That person, I once had him completely. Why can't we be together now? We should be going home hand in hand, complaining about work under the blankets, planning where to spend our one long holiday during the year. But another voice whispered inside me, "You can't, not anymore." I had sensed it long ago. We would both become S-rank alphas, destined to become the rightful heirs of our families, destined to marry a well-matched S-rank omega, to produce a powerful, perfect successor. Our youthful promise, that whoever became an omega would marry the other, was no more than a dreamy, beautiful fantasy. And when the dream ended, all that sweetness had to be repaid, with tenfold, 100-fold of pain and reluctance. We no longer met in private, but the elders had no idea what had happened between us. Our two families had always been close, so gatherings were inevitable. I attended the banquet with my parents. Inside were not only the Torres family but also the Hees, and I immediately saw the two people sitting together. One was a figure I knew by heart, Trent. The other was Michael. My eyes drifted to the pheromone patch behind Michael's neck. An S-rank omega. He had lived abroad for years. Otherwise, he would have grown up playing with us too. The atmosphere at the table was lively. The adults were chatting about the stock market and banking policies. Michael's father laughed. "Michael is 2 years younger than Trent. He should call you big brother. You two should get along well. Both of you are at the right age now." Michael lifted his head. He had that vibrant, clear-cut beauty unique to omegas. He tilted his head toward Trent and called softly, "Trent." "Yeah, I just got back and don't know where to go for fun. If you have time, can you show me around?" "Sure." The elders of both families exchanged a knowing look and smiled. It was a matchmaking dinner. They just brought our family along so it wouldn't be too obvious. People of their status never shared a meal without purpose, or spoke a word without intention. My chopsticks tapped lightly against the bone dish. When I looked up, Trent was already watching me. My chest tightened, clogged by something shapeless and heavy. I pressed my lips together. "I'm going to the restroom." My mother nodded. Before the door closed, I heard Trent's mother say, "They look perfect together." Perfect. Perfect because one was an alpha and the other was an omega. I splashed cold water onto my face, hard, trying to calm the turbulence inside me. There was nothing to be upset about. This day was always going to come. For him, or for me. After steadying myself, I turned around, and Trent was leaning against the wall behind me, a lit cigarette between his fingers. He took a drag, then held it out to me. I leaned forward and took a breath from it. Different brand, cedar-scented, just like my pheromone. Through the smoke, he froze slightly. His fingertips brushed my cheek. "You cried?" I wiped my face. "Cold water." Then I forced a casual tone. "Congratulations. Looks like your big day isn't far off." His expression hardened instantly. "Is that really what you think?" I ignored the sadness beneath his voice and smiled. "Of course. And I'm sure when I get married, you'll also give me your—" His mouth cut me off. A sudden, urgent, overwhelming kiss. My hands instinctively moved to wrap around his neck, but stopped halfway. He gripped my jaw, forcing me to open up to him. His kiss filled with longing and pain. My nose stung. Tears almost fell, but I came to my senses and pushed him away. I intended to crack a joke. "Hey, you can't just ambush your ex like that." But when I saw his reddened eyes, the sadness swimming in them, the words died in my throat. He wiped the corner of my lips with his thumb. "Dominic, do you know how long we haven't seen each other?" I thought. 2 months. 46 days, he said. Ah, new record. We had never gone that long without seeing each other. I keep thinking, there will be many more stretches of 46 days like this. "Dominic, I feel like I'm losing my mind." He pulled me into a hug, so tight it felt like he wanted to merge me into his bones. "Tell me, wouldn't it hurt less if I just disappeared altogether?" My eyes widened, fighting tears. This wasn't the Trent I knew. He was always calm, composed, unshakable. A person who could stand firm through anything. Why did he look like he would shatter at a touch now? I closed my eyes. Turns out pretending not to see each other doesn't heal anything. It only hurts more. On the way home, my parents discussed Michael and Trent. My mother said, "Looks like something good is coming for the Torres family." My father replied, "Not necessarily. S-rank omegas aren't that rare. There are many with better conditions than Michael. Trent is an S-rank alpha. That's far more valuable. They will choose carefully." Hearing that, my mother looked at me with pride. After all, in a world where pheromone rank dictated everything, an S-rank alpha had unmatched advantages. Powerful, privileged, born to stand at the top of the pyramid, and safeguard the family legacy. She stared at me for a moment and suddenly asked, "Are you feeling unwell? You seem down today. If I don't get married." Before I finished, her expression shifted instantly. She looked at my father, alarmed. My father's voice dropped cold. "Don't talk nonsense. If you don't marry, do you want some illegitimate child to inherit the family?" "No, I won't have children either." The air in the car froze. The driver's hands trembled. I caught the faint flare of pheromone disturbance from my father. "Dominic, you're not a child anymore. You know your responsibility. You've seen what happened to the Song family. They had no S-rank alpha heir, and they were devoured piece by piece. You know the consequences. Don't speak like this again. What if the child I have isn't S-rank? Then have more. 10, 20, until you do. Do you think you'll lack omegas willing to bear children for you? But what if I don't love them? Love is the least important thing." I hummed quietly and closed my eyes. My thoughts were scattered and heavy. Responsibility, duty, legacy. Were these truly more important than Trent? A voice inside me screamed no. That love mattered the most. But I buried it violently, even though it was the truest thing in my heart. Rumors about Trent and Michael began spreading everywhere. I could tell it was mostly Michael's doing, using public opinion and the media to push their relationship closer, hoping it would become official as soon as possible. But when I saw the photos, Trent with his hands in his pockets, looking distant, and Michael beside him smiling bright and warm, I still couldn't stop the sting in my chest. I downed my drink in one gulp. Joseph hooked an arm around my shoulder. His fox-like eyes glimmered with an almost cynical wisdom. "People like us," he said, are born into wealth. We have everything, but life gives and takes. To gain so much, something must be traded away. For example, love. So don't torture yourself over something that was doomed from the start. I turned my head to look at him. With just one shared glance, I understood. When did you figure it out? I've known for a long time. You two only ever managed to fool that blockhead Samuel. I sighed. The alcohol made my thoughts sluggish. I see. Maybe he thought I was getting too gloomy, because he changed the subject. I just wonder what other tricks Michael's family has prepared. They seem pretty desperate. Joseph's question was answered sooner than expected. Trent's housekeeper called me. I hesitated, but still picked up. Jenna's panicked voice burst from the phone. Dominic, you need to come to the young master's house right now. Her voice was so frantic that I was already standing, grabbing my coat. What happened to him? The young master, his susceptibility period started early. Only then did I understand why she was terrified. If an S-class alpha lost control during susceptibility, the volatility could be dangerous, an overwhelming mix of aggression and compulsive instinct. Normally, we prepared safe rooms for such episodes. If an alpha had their own omega, they would spend the susceptibility period together. It could be intense, overwhelming, but also harmonious. But Trent entered his susceptibility at home, without warning. No wonder Jenna was scared. I'm on my way, she continued, voice trembling. Michael went in just now, but my steps faltered. It felt like something heavy slammed into my chest, draining all my strength. Michael went in. His pheromones could soothe Trent, and a susceptible alpha driven purely by instinct. It wouldn't be surprising if Trent marked him. A mark symbolizing devotion, possession, exclusivity. Even if temporary, it was an honor everyone coveted. Everything made perfect sense. Alphas needed omegas. What place was left for me? I let out a bitter laugh. Since he's there, that should be enough. I won't go. It felt like a blade twisting slowly in my chest. Dominic, no. Jenna practically screamed. He went in, but then something went wrong. The young master started screaming for help. We heard things breaking. We're all too scared to go near the room. Please come. I frowned, and headed straight for the car. There was only one explanation. Trent refused Michael's pheromones. If an alpha rejected an omega's scent during susceptibility, they could lash out violently. Injuries, even death, were possible. Their physical strength simply wasn't on the same scale. I rushed to Trent's house. The staff were waiting outside, pale with fear. They urged me in the moment they saw me. Inside, Trent's pheromones, dark sandalwood, hit me hard. Aggressive, chaotic, burning. A lesser alpha would have collapsed immediately. I forced myself forward into his room. The place was wrecked, shattered glass everywhere. Trent was on the carpet, trembling, breath uneven, knuckles white as he dug his fingers into the floor. And Michael, he was curled up behind the door, unable to move. There was spilled vomit mixed with blood from his injured arm. He was conscious, barely, his pretty face twisted in terror. The air was thick with the clash of Michael's orchid-scented pheromones and Trent's violent sandalwood. S-class omega pheromones were potent, even I felt a bit feverish. I loosened my tie and lifted Michael. I needed to get him out first. Just as I turned, a hand clamped around my ankle. Trent's hoarse voice rasped behind me. He lay on the floor, hair damp with sweat, staring up at me helplessly. Don't go. Don't go. I gritted my teeth. I couldn't hold out much longer either. Let go. I need to take him out first. Don't go. His pheromones surged, lashing out wildly. His grip was like an iron shackle. I'll come back. I promise. No, don't. I'm begging you. Please. So fragile. So desperate. I kicked free and stepped out. His eyes, blood red, filled with anguish, stabbed right through me. Dominic. His voice cracked through the room like a wounded animal's cry. My heart trembled violently. I carried Michael out and ran downstairs. He blinked weakly, orchid scent still spilling uncontrollably. I frowned. Reel it in. He blinked again, then, unbelievably, smiled. Did I affect you? With the amount you're releasing, how could I not? I actually like you more, he whispered, but my family said you were harder to approach. I stared at him, stunned. This kid was still flirting while half collapsing. I handed him to Jenna. Call Joseph, he'll handle it. And remember, tonight stays secret. She nodded frantically. Michael's fingers caught my sleeve for a moment, then fell as he fainted. I rushed back upstairs. The moment I entered, Trent jerked upright. Even half conscious, the relief, fear, longing, all of it, surged in his eyes. I released my pheromones, deep cedar, and they blended with his. Alpha pheromones couldn't soothe another alpha, but at least they didn't clash. Trent inhaled sharply, and then he pulled me down. His skin was burning hot. Before I could speak, he kissed me. Desperate, feverish, unrestrained. Heat pooled low in my stomach. His lips, his breath, his hands, everything was urgent and hungry. He tore at my clothes with trembling fingers. His voice, thick with desire, murmured against my neck. Dominic. It hurt. How much longing was in that sound. I'm here, I whispered back, heart aching. Give me. He bit at my collarbone, trembling. The rest blurred into heat, instinct, and surrender. Those 7 days were a fever dream, close to madness, overwhelming, intoxicating. When I finally woke, I was shocked I survived. Thank God alphas had strong bodies. Anyone else would have died in that bed. Standing before the bathroom mirror, I saw nothing but bruises and marks. Everywhere. I was still staring when Trent walked in. We met each other's gaze. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. Does it hurt? Hurts like hell. I'm fine. He buried his face against my neck, breathing me in. I didn't think you'd come. Would you rather I left you to kill someone? He tightened his hold. After a while, I pushed him gently. Let go. I have to go. He suddenly asked. Dominic, are we really making the right choice? I looked at his reflection. We shared the same doubt. I used to think we'd be together forever, he murmured. I never even imagined a future without you. And now, suddenly, I'm supposed to give you up for the sake of family duty. Dominic, I wish I was just an ordinary Omega. Why were we always so painfully alike? I forced a smile. If you were an Omega, does that mean you'd let me top you? If it meant we could stay together, I wouldn't care. My heart clenched. I should go. If I didn't leave now, I wouldn't leave at all. I wanted, desperately, to stay. He released me slowly, hurt flashing in his eyes. Dominic, can we really let each other go? I don't know, but my heart was screaming. No, because he was already stitched into my soul. Every memory, every breath, every part of me had his shadow. To forget him, I'd need to tear myself apart. Because I'd been overwhelmed by too much pheromone exposure that day, my susceptibility period arrived earlier than expected. It didn't hit me as suddenly as it hit Trent though. The moment I sensed it coming, I asked the housekeeper to pack my things. Then I headed to the safe house alone. When she finished packing, the housekeeper glanced at a suitcase by my feet. Sir, this one? It's nothing, I replied. I grabbed that suitcase myself and went downstairs. A susceptibility period was always hard to endure, especially one without an Omega to help stabilize me. Restlessness and turbulence rushed in together, and I could feel the pheromones inside me flaring out of control. In a panic, I opened that suitcase and took out the clothes that still carried Trent's scent. I threw everything onto the bed, surrounding myself with his clothes, letting the faint warmth they held swallow me whole. It eased the agitation in my chest as much as it could. His sandalwood scent was dense, almost bittersweet. I tightened my arms, but all I held were thin layers of fabric. For a moment, I went completely blank, a wave of grievance hitting me out of nowhere. I should have been holding Trent, warm, real, breathing. I muttered that he was a jerk. He had slept soundly with me when he needed comfort, yet now I was here struggling alone. But after complaining, I felt ridiculous. He didn't even know my susceptibility period had started. Clutching his clothes, I stared up at the ceiling, and suddenly burst into tears. Trent, it's unbearable. I kind of miss you, do you know that? It was the most painful susceptibility period of my life. But the pain didn't end there. Because afterward, I received the news of Trent and Michael's engagement. They were going to get married. When the cleaning lady entered my office, she was greeted by chaos, shattered objects everywhere. Broken porcelain and a smashed computer silently displayed the storm I had just unleashed. I sat in my chair, exhausted. Blood was dripping from my arm, seeping into the dark carpet. She called softly, Dominic, don't speak. She lowered her head and cleaned quickly. Just as she was about to finish, someone else entered. A faint orchid scent drifted toward me. Michael. He approached, frowning when he saw my hand. Your hand. Do you need something? I asked flatly. I came to thank you for saving me last time. I hummed in acknowledgement, gaze drifting back toward the window. You're wondering why Trent suddenly entered susceptibility, right? It was my parents' doing. They wanted me to get his permanent mark while he was vulnerable. I turned my head toward him. He gave a pale, bitter smile. But you saw how he reacted. He rejected me completely. I always knew I was just a bargaining chip in an arranged marriage, but in that moment, I really felt cheap. But even so, I don't get to choose who marks me, who I marry. None of it is up to me. Honestly, compared to him, I like you more. He had said this before. I had no energy to comfort him. After all, he wasn't the only one trapped with no choices. The most perfect genes were often the tightest cage. Their engagement happened as scheduled. Reporters surrounded the villa, filing every inch of space. Any politician or business figure attending could make headlines on their own. The massive chandelier cast a golden glow, draping this place in the sheen of prestige and power. Trent still hadn't arrived. Michael, dressed in a tailored white suit, was surrounded by guests. Normally he excelled in social settings, but today he seemed distracted. His father shot him a displeased look, prompting him to quickly restore his perfect smile. Everyone maintained impeccable manners. Pheromone-blocking patches were visible on every neck. With so many alphas and omegas gathered, disorder had to be prevented. I was still scanning the entrance for Trent when a trace of orchid drifted into my nose. Instinctively, I looked at Michael. A glass shattered somewhere, and the scent around him intensified, sharp, sweet, charged. My pulse quickened. A flush rose on Michael's pale skin as he curled into himself in discomfort. In a setting like this, any omega on the verge of instability would have taken a suppressant beforehand. This kind of mistake shouldn't happen. His voice turned soft, blurred. There's something in the wine. The room broke into commotion. An S-grade omega losing control, their pheromones could destabilize an entire hull. Last time his scent had mixed with Trent's, even I barely held on. Ordinary alphas would stand no chance. Joseph and I exchanged a look from across the room. He gave me a nod. I forced myself to stay steady, rushed forward, lifted Michael into my arms, and carried him upstairs. With so many reporters outside, we could not let a scandal explode inside the villa. I set him down on the bed. His orchid scent kept surging, clouding my mind. Michael curled up, visibly overwhelmed, and reached out to grip my arm. Dominic, his voice was soft, trembling, not seductive, just someone losing control and desperately seeking stability. My own instincts reacted sharply, and I held him down by the shoulders. This is how you're fighting back against your family? He gave a breathless laugh, hair damp with sweat. Yeah, do you want me to stop? You know there's only one way. He meant a stabilizing mark, a symbolic, temporary one, nothing intimate, a last resort method used in emergencies. You know what's happening downstairs, don't you? He nodded, rubbing his forehead, trying to stay clear-headed. All I did was drink a drugged glass of wine. It's not my fault. Give me the stabilizing mark. If you do, the engagement will be cancelled and you'll have to take responsibility. If you don't, you'll have to watch everything fall apart tonight. His eyes were unfocused, breath uneven. Can't I find another alpha to stabilize you? In front of everyone? I'm Trent's almost fiancé. If a random alpha steps in, my life is over. Noise from downstairs grew louder. Reporters surrounded the villa. Joseph wouldn't be able to disperse them fast enough. Michael's pheromones kept rising. It was dangerous to wait any longer. I pressed him down. His gaze was hazy, unfocused, overwhelmed. I leaned in and gently touched my teeth to the back of his neck. A light, non-injurious symbolic motion that signaled the temporary stabilizing bond. Michael gasped in pain, then exhaled shakily as the pheromones calmed. The scents blended, orchid and sandalwood, until the room finally steadied. The metallic tang on my tongue told me I'd pressed too hard, though not enough to actually hurt him. Before I could gather my thoughts, he lifted a hand toward my waist, seeking comfort. I turned my head away, breathing deeply. At that moment, Joseph burst in. You're insane. He could smell what had happened. 2 pheromones mixed meant a stabilizing mark had indeed been made. It was only temporary. But before I could finish, my voice died. Because in the doorway, Trent stood there. His eyes were crimson with fury. Wild, shaken, destroyed. He stormed in, grabbed my collar, and roared, voice cracking. Dominic, how dare you mark someone else? I stared at him, anger rising in my own chest. He had the nerve to question me. He was the one getting engaged today, not me. I punched him across the face. If I hadn't stabilized him, your engagement party would have exploded into chaos. Shouldn't the groom be thanking me? He staggered back, staring at the blood on my lips, left from stabilizing Michael. Then he lunged. We had never fought seriously before, but this time, neither of us held back. Jealousy and rage twisted in his eyes. The always calm Trent fought like someone breaking apart. We brawled out of the room, across the hallway. At the top of the stairs, I kicked him, he grabbed my ankle, and we both tumbled down. My back burned with pain as we hit the floor. Before I could sit up, he pinned me by the throat. We grappled, rolling, breath fighting breath. For one insane second, I thought, maybe this is easier. Maybe I won't have to watch him choose someone else. Tears fell from his face onto mine. People rushed over, trying to break us apart. You two, enough. You grew up together. Talk it out. Dominic acted out of necessity today. He wasn't trying to hurt your fiancé. Trent. Uncle Torres's voice cut sharply through the air. His face was stony. Michael's parents were pale as sheets. His father whispered anxiously, let's calm down first. The engagement is cancelled, Uncle Torres snapped. The Torres family will not accept this humiliation. Humiliation? I laughed bitterly. Who exactly had been humiliated? The man I'd been with for years was about to marry someone else. If anyone had been wronged, it was me. Trent looked at me, and in our eyes there was nothing left but each other. Desperate, frantic, shattered. Then Trent spoke, voice trembling. Dominic, if the world ended in the next second, what would you do? I'd kiss you. His hand loosened. He slowly leaned down and brushed his lips against mine. A gentle, trembling touch, like a butterfly landing for only a heartbeat. Our thoughts always match, don't they? Silence fell over the hall. He stood up, reached out to me, and I took his hand. Our fingers intertwined once more. People surrounded us like a rising tide. I saw Joseph and Samuel staring in disbelief. I saw others gaping, whispering. I saw my father's anger, my mother's tears. The world felt like it was ending. But with Trent standing beside me, it didn't seem so terrifying anymore. I was locked in a place specially designed to restrain people with abilities like mine. A normal room could never hold me, not even my father could suppress me by force anymore. The walls were thick metal, the door reinforced. Nothing else. My mother came once, crying as she tried to convince me, just apologize to your father. You and Trent, how could something like that even happen? I refused. Then came their compromise. You two can be however you want, she said softly, but you must have an heir someday. Dominic, you've always been such a good son. Just promise us this one thing. The sealed space had already begun wearing down my nerves. I leaned my forehead against the dented metal wall. No, I whispered. I will only ever be with Trent. My father's voice came, cold and sharp. Trent has already figured it out. Why can't you? Hearing his name snapped me awake. No, I answered. He wouldn't agree to that. You're bluffing. Silence. I stared at the faint sliver of light under the door. Almost. They couldn't keep me here forever. I thought I was prepared, but they opened the door far sooner than I expected. The sudden light stung my eyes. My father's face was full of fury. He struck me across the cheek. Look what you've caused. Behind him stood men in black, Torres family security. A single possibility hit me like a blow. Trent was hurt. He must have been confined just like I was. His father was always harsher than mine. Duty, legacy, expectations. He never let up. But Trent, he'd injured the source of his own abilities, taking a reckless risk that could weaken him for life. When the Torres patriarch spoke to me outside the operating room, his voice trembled with anger and fear. He said, if he's no longer exceptional, maybe then he'd be allowed to stay with you. My breath stopped. Even after he was hurt that badly, the man continued, he refused to enter the operating room until you came. Guilt swept over me, toward his parents, toward my own. We all watched you grow up, he said. Do you know how much faith your family's placed in you? Don't you feel even a little responsibility? His words fell like a mountain on my chest. Through the glass, I saw the sign, in surgery. Trent was inside, fighting for a future he believed in so desperately that he'd risked everything. I looked up at the man. I promise, I said quietly, we will give everything we have to our families. We will honor every responsibility expected of us. But we cannot live our entire lives preparing for a future 100 years from now while abandoning the person standing right in front of us. My parents stared at me as if I were speaking a language they'd never heard. A strange ache rose within me. Has there ever been a moment, I asked softly, when you saw us not as heirs or symbols of legacy, but simply as your children? Kids you would love even if we weren't extraordinary? I can't repay you the way you want, I whispered. And if that means I'm unworthy of being your son, then take back everything you gave me, even my life. They fell silent. My mother's tears burst forth. Even my father, always stern, always unshakable, went still. She slapped me once, then pulled me into a trembling embrace. What are you saying? Dominic, what are you saying? The light above the operating room went off. The Torres patriarch rushed toward the door, the first time I'd ever seen fear in him. How is my son? The operation was successful, the doctor said, but how fully he recovers will depend on long-term treatment. He swayed, releasing a long, shuddering breath. I looked at the closed door, and I knew, we had won. With Trent's reckless, desperate courage, I woke to the feeling of his fingers brushing my face, cheekbones, nose, lips, slow and careful. When I opened my eyes, he was smiling at me. I wanted to scold him, but my eyes warmed first. You're insane, I whispered, completely out of your mind. He took my hand and pressed a gentle kiss to my fingertips, his gaze steady on mine. It didn't hurt that much, he murmured, not as much as seeing you with someone else. He pulled me onto the wide hospital bed. Finally, after everything, we could hold each other without hiding, without fear. Our heartbeats thudded together, calming and fierce all at once. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have chosen this path long ago. When I heard you were being pushed toward an engagement, I couldn't breathe." He fell silent as I played with the simple silver ring on his hand. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't something people like us were ever supposed to have. But I remembered the night we bought it. We were young, walking past someone proposing on the street. People gathered, cheering. We joined in, shouting with them. When the crowd dispersed, Trent looked at me, and we both understood instantly. "Marry me," we said at the same time. I laughed. "Where's the ring?" The mall was minutes from closing, but it didn't matter. We ran through the streets, breathless, and found a tiny shop still open. We chose a pair of rings that fit both of us. That night, under the dim lights, we made our quiet promise. "I'll marry you someday," I told him, "and you'll give me a house full of kids." He blushed. "Maybe I'll marry you, and you'll be the one taking care of them. But either way," he smiled, "we'll be together, right?" "Yes," I said. "Always." The memory made me laugh out loud. Trent's eyes softened. He reached for the necklace around my neck and removed it, the ring dangling at the end. He slid it onto my finger. "Our promise can be out in the open now." I looked at him, his eyes, the curve of his smile, the softness of his lips, and emotion swelled in my chest. We leaned toward each other at the exact same moment. Our embrace deepened, full of relief, longing, and everything we had held back for so long, but nothing that crossed the bounds of what we could show the world. Just warmth, just connection, just the love we nearly lost. And as I held him close, I silently thanked myself for locking the door earlier. Trent recovered well over time. On the day he was discharged, I was driving when Samuel suddenly called. I quickly declined the call. Trent glanced at me. "Why didn't you pick up? You think I dare?" I whispered. "We hid this from him for so long, he's definitely calling to confront us." Right as I spoke, Samuel called again. Trent laughed. "You can't hide forever." He picked up the phone. On the other end, Samuel's voice came sharp and dramatic. Well, Dominic finally answers his phone. "It's me," Trent said calmly. "And Dominic's right here." "Save me the excuses," Samuel snapped. "Both of you meet me today. Same place." When we arrived, Joseph was already there, arms crossed, grinning like he was watching a show. Trent and I took turns offering apologies and flattery until Samuel's expression softened. He shoved me lightly. "Friends for over 20 years, and you two pulled a secret relationship on me?" I rubbed my nose, embarrassed. "We just didn't know how to say it. Besides," I pointed at Joseph, "he knew way earlier than you did, and he didn't tell you either." Samuel immediately turned to glare at Joseph. Hey, that's not." "Wait," Joseph stammered. Crisis successfully redirected. Trent and I exchanged a small triumphant smile. After the teasing settled, Samuel kicked Trent lightly under the table. "Remember to return the wedding gift I gave you." "Of course," Trent said. "Though when we get married, we're not taking gifts from any of you." Joseph downed his drink. "What about your parents?" "Barely settled," I said. "We just won't go home too often for the next couple of years. Give them time to adjust." He nodded. "You two really did it. Everyone's talking about how you're the definition of real love now." "I know I wouldn't have the guts," he added with a laugh. I pressed my lips together and secretly squeezed Trent's hand. When the gathering ended, we stepped outside and found it snowing. The first snowfall of the year. And once again, I was watching it with Trent. Over 20 winters together. And I had never grown tired of it. He pulled me gently into his arms. "Let's never break that 46-day record again." I brushed a light kiss against his cold cheek. "Well, that depends on you. What if you suddenly decide on an arranged marriage again?" He pinched my waist, making me flinch and laugh. "Still want to say that?" No, I said between laughs. "I'm done. I swear." The snow grew heavier, falling onto our hair, like pale strands of winter white before melting away. I lifted a hand to touch his brow, his eyes, so warm, so gentle. A poetic line surfaced in my mind. If someday we stand in the same snowfall, it will be as though we've grown old together. Trent leaned in and corrected me softly. "Not as though. We will grow old together." I smiled and kissed him back. "Then let's grow old together." And I knew I would never let go of his hand again.
And that's where today's story leaves us. A world built on pheromone ranks, family duty, and two people trying desperately to hold on to a love they were never allowed to keep. What struck me most in this novel is how quietly tragic the relationship between Dominic and Trent really is. There's no dramatic breakup, no final argument, just two people who grew up loving each other, slowly realizing that the world they live in has already made the choice for them. And that slow, suffocating drift apart hurts far more than any loud conflict ever could. The writing shines the brightest whenever the author dives into the emotional tension between them. That scene where they see each other across the room, where a single glance brings back years of memories, longing, and heartbreak. That's the kind of moment that stays with you long after the chapter ends. But the story isn't perfect. Sometimes, the world-building relies too heavily on hierarchy and destiny, and the pressure from both families can feel almost overwhelming. Yet maybe that's exactly the point, the idea that even the strongest alpha isn't strong enough to fight the expectations placed on him. And honestly, watching Dominic and Trent keep choosing each other even when everything pushes them apart, that's what makes this story worth listening to. But what do you think? Do you feel they were doomed from the start, or do you think love like theirs could ever survive in a world like this? Tell me in the comments, I'm really curious how you all see it.